The law and gospel for this week with our story of the fall of Jericho. What's the law? The bad news, where God tells us to do something but we don't. The fall of Jericho. Well, it teaches us that God does punish. He does punish people. We see that the city of Jericho just get totally wiped out. God punished those people who choose to live apart from Him. We see that God expects obedience, even in the details. Even when it didn't make sense, God expected His people to march around the city one time or 7 times, to do it His way, to trust Him. He expects us not to just kind of in general, kind of obey the spirit of what He's talking about, but even all the little details, and trust that He knows better. Our might cannot keep us from punishment. This law reminds us we can have walls and God can break through. If we think God can't touch us, God can't punish us, we're wrong. That's all the bad news with this story. We see that death and destruction, but we do see some wonderful good news. We see God gives His family blessings. In our story, we see God bring them to the promised land. For us, we aren't going to the promised land of Canaan anymore, but we know we're going to go to the promised land of heaven. And God will guide us through this life and get us through the walls and give us whatever victories we need to get us there. Not because we deserve it, but because He loves us. We are reminded God forgives all sins. Rahab the prostitute, she was known as that because she had lived a very visibly sinful life, but that didn't stop God from loving her. That didn't stop God from forgiving her. She came into God's family, and we too are forgiven no matter what our past, no matter what our sins. Jesus paid for them all. And finally, Jesus is related to all sinners like us. He was related to Rahab the prostitute. She was brought into His family, and that means we're related to Him as well, and He saved all of us. It's a great comfort that we, again, aren't kept out of God's family because of our past or our pedigree, but we're put in that because of Jesus' passion for us. So let's summarize the law and gospel of the fall of Jericho. God can and does punish those who live without Him, but eagerly calls and gathers sinners like us into His family and uses us in His plan of salvation. That's the law and gospel of the fall of Jericho.